There is no Second Amendment. It's all being totally eroded at a rapid rate. And once they get private property, it's the last bulwark of freedom.
What do you think? It's all going to become private in no time at all?
Well, that's kind of how it works.
Is this a stepping stone?
Well, in the name of keeping it sovereign and not private, some of the Rockefeller interests, the turn of the century, they started the first environmentalist foundations. I'm not sure if you, and most people don't know that, but a lot of the big foundations were started with money that they put up. And really, it's a rationale. Down in southern Mexico, and it's not happening here yet, but in Yucatan, where there's biospheres and World Heritage Sites, they push the Indians off their land, and that's what they are. They're Indians down there too, the Mayans and people. They push them off their land under the guise of environmentalism, give them a little bit of money. They have to go to Mexico City and work like slaves. And then once they go up there, boom, that's it. They're all up in the city, and they put up biosphere signs. And my dad was down there, and he saw biosphere signs. He said, oh, well, that might be good. And like these little ghost towns out in the country and like in the woods and the jungle and stuff. Then he went into a nice hotel he was staying at and saw brochures how to buy biosphere. So kind of what they do is...
So we're talking about stepping stones.
It's just they lay down even more corruption down there. And so it's already happening there.
Right.
And if you look at it, half our debt's held by foreign banks, foreign countries.
Right.
So it's the next step towards, 10 years it's a biosphere. Then they restrict access. Then they say, well, we're going to build a rich condo community here. What do you think about them restricting and planning in just a few months, they say, to restrict vehicle access to this park and make everyone pack on buses and double the rates?
No, I don't agree with that. I think people should be, this is a federal agency that runs this, and it's our tax dollars that pay for it. I'm willing to pay whatever it is to get into the park, but let me drive my own vehicle in, don't ship me in like cattle or whatever. And that's what it is. They're shipping them in. I've seen so many buses in here. It's incredible. These tours that are coming in, and that's fine. It's still a private company doing it.
Well, it's those private companies lobbying the interior and lobbying Congress and people to do this so they make more money.
Okay, well then I guess I don't like it.
Absolutely.
I like, we brought our kids out here because this is what we were afraid of. We thought we got to get them out here now before it's gone, and that's why we're here. That's basically what it boils down to.
And would you say that it's pretty sick and pretty just absolutely ruthless to, in the name of the environment, hijack environmental treasures so you can later subdivide them?
Yeah, I think that's wrong. Yeah, ruthless is how you put it. Okay, I'll agree with that. I totally agree with that.
Talking about shutting down the park to vehicles and making everyone pack on buses to come here. Don't really?
No.
All right, thanks for the help. Have a good one. I think we need more interviews. And come in on buses.
Doesn't sound like a very good idea to me.
Well, yes, you're the person.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be here, if we had to do that.
And you're the person that pays the taxes to upkeep this place.
That's right, yeah. And the fees to get in, of course.
And it's only a first step just to see what the government can do to public lands and then next private property, because it seems like more and more they have their eyes on public property and private property.
Well, they're doing a lot by executive orders, you're saying that it shouldn't be done without the voters' approval.
And it's like an executive order is almost admiralty law. It's like military law.
Well, it doesn't seem like it's the American way, does it? It seems like that's the way they do it in more or less the communist countries versus the United States, where we vote on things.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, sir.
Okay.
Y'all are the owners. We bought into this whole federal government type deal, and now they're telling us that we can't even use what we supposedly own?
Well, I don't know. I'd rather...
Yeah. Turns this over to the United Nations, and they got a plaque down at the main central office. But it'd probably be easier just not to think about it.
How come they didn't start you in the conspiracy theory?
It's not a conspiracy theory. There's a bronze plaque right up there, ma'am. You see that right there? They talk about a Hollywood movie rather than the bronze plaque in the executive order. That is what's wrong with America, ladies and gentlemen. People have been taught, bred from a foot tall, absolutely not to care, while they're being raided by the government, which is controlled by corrupt corporations. And when I say that, I mean the top 20. What people think is rich is a joke in this country. They think a nice house and a nice car is wealthy. And that's why it's so easy for the establishment to manipulate people. You notice the well-informed people would talk to us and knew of the executive orders, only a few. And they're probably the people who've actually done well economically because they were able to sift through the lies. But the rest of America seems to love being conned. It's like they get into being lied to, and they get an incredible thrill out of the whole thing. That is painful to me. That's why I'll continue to make these documentaries. I will continue to rant and rave on the radio about factual information. And if people don't have the inner strength to rise up to a threat, foreign or domestic, and stand up for U.S. sovereignty, then I feel really, really sorry for them. Because that's where we are in America today. We are under siege. We're losing our property rights as we speak. Y'all heard the news? They got a plaque up there. This has been signed over to United Nations control, but some lady said, I've seen the movie Conspiracy Theory. She won't go look at the plaque up at the front visitor center. That'd be too hard. She'll just say, oh, another conspiracy theorist. We're now inside the Rocky Mountain National Park here in central Colorado. A very, very beautiful park with mountains and streams and creeks. And here is a map in front of you of the area that is being taken over by the United Nations and other international groups now that President Clinton has been signing executive orders doing that. And I guess in a way it's only karma, or you reap what you sow, because we took it from the Indians, my ancestors did, and I guess it's being taken from us now by Europe. The people we ran away from to come to this country are now coming back and taking, I guess, charge of their slaves again. So again, this entire area is coming under United Nations control, and it's been a process that started in 1968 and now is beginning to come to fruition, and now they're going to start restricting access to the park and other parks, and I'm sure in 10 years from now, after they've gradually gotten us used to losing control of our public lands, they'll start subdividing it for the corrupt top 20 corporations that make their money out of crime and manipulation of governments, not out of creation. So that's what's going on here. And the middle class, be aware you are the enemy in this third world war that is silent.
Have you seen the bronze plaque that's hanging up right inside that makes this an international biosphere? It says UNESCO.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now I know what you're talking about.
Well, what's your opinion? Do you think America can run its parks, or do you think we need international help?
Oh, I think we can run our own parks. That's a personal opinion. It's not a, you know.
So.
I'm not speaking for anyone else.
Oh, I understand. Why do you think that we can run our own parks?
Oh, our own parks with the federal government here in the United States?
Yes.
Or each one individually? I think each one individually can do a wonderful job in running their own parks.
Absolutely.
Too.
Local control is always better.
And we're getting local control. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am aware that they're, well, exactly what's happening.
A certain percentage of the fees, the increase in the fees, is going to stay in each park, each individual park.
Well,
that's brand new. That's a whole new concept. And it's wonderful. And they've also increased the fees, which is also, I think, wonderful.
Yeah.
Doubled in some instances. And I just don't think you can pay enough to be in this kind of beauty and this kind of atmosphere. Really
well, I'm willing to. Well,
that's my personal feeling. I think it's just a wonderful place.
Well, it is wonderful that we have these national parks, but it's not wonderful that she's totally uninformed. Yes, they've doubled the rates. Yes, they plan to increase them more. And yes, they give the locales a small percentage. That's how they got them to sign on to the new federal supranational program. But I asked her more, and she, again, had never heard of the United Nations plaque hanging inside the place where she worked. It's all being done cunningly, gradually. Now the documentary changes. We're done with the national parks and the UN takeover. Now we're going to go to Oklahoma City and back to Austin, Texas to expose the UN here in town, taking over our youth.
Ma'am, I want to ask you about K-Tag. What exactly is K-Tag?
It's an automatic transponder, automatic toll system. You get a little transponder you put on your windshield.
So
it opens the gate for you. You're billed for it.
So you put an automatic transponder on your car. Part of the new smart highway system, or?
I don't know. I have one and I love it.
I love it too. I'm gonna get one right in my forehead. Thanks a lot. We just drove through a toll road here in Kansas, and they're putting in these chips in your cars where you just drive right through. And I said to the lady, I said, do you like that? What do you think about that? And she goes, I think it's great. The lady that works here, and I forgot to tell her, oh, so you like something that's going to make you lose your job. And plus, in a few years, you'll just have transponders in your cars to make sure you've paid your taxes. It's Pandora's box. But hey, it's a great idea. We're going to be slaves. I love it. I'm scanning, urine testing for driver's licenses. Just great. I'm excited. Let's get back on the road.
Go pay more tolls and have transponders.
I'm standing at about the point where Timothy McVeigh supposedly parked the truck bomb, the fuel oil fertilizer bomb that destroyed the Murrow building. Since April 19th, 1995, masses of evidence have come out. People have seen the newscast from the first day where they reported multiple bombs. Experts like General Benton Parton, ex-head of Air Force Weapons Development, Ted Gunderson, FBI chief, have documented with the U.S. Geological Survey's own seismographs that there were multiple explosions, that the building was blown out, and that it was impossible for a Ryder truck filled with even premium-grade military explosives to cause that damage. Now, there was probably a Ryder truck used as a diversion, and again, that corresponds to the multiple seismograph explosions shown by the state and federal agencies. But the media has chosen not to report on this. Now, here's the key point. They told you about a big crater. Newsweek had to show you an illustration because they didn't have any video evidence. Well, here is the video evidence. A pile of rubble. The building was blown out. Now we're fixing to show you some newscast with more conflicting evidence. There you had the pile of rubble, not a crater.
We want to update our audience that the Justice Department is reporting that a second explosive device has been found in the A.P. Murrah building in downtown Oklahoma City. Mike, you're still with us, aren't you?
Yes, I am, and I might tell you in addition to that, in fact what we were told at the scene a few minutes ago was that in fact 2 different explosive devices were found in addition to the one that went off.
So a total of 3.
A total of 3, and of course
have is that one device was deactivated. Apparently there's another device, and obviously whatever did the damage to the Murrah building was a tremendous, very sophisticated explosive device.
Unfortunately this time, because as we've told you, 2 other explosive devices were found that were not detonated, and they were larger. The first bomb that was in the federal building did go off. It did the damage that you see right there. The second explosive was found and diffused. The third explosive that was found, and they are working on right now as we speak, I understand, both the second and third explosives, if you can imagine this, were larger than the first. And what these later devices are doing to the rescue effort, time is so valuable right now as they try to get to these people who perhaps somehow are still hanging on.
But there were 4 bombs set to go off, according to ATF officials.
Only President Clinton and his associates stood to gain from the April 19th, 1995 bombing. It created a police state. Thank God people like Representative Charles Keyes have been standing up against butchers like Reno.
President Clinton just called Governor Frank Keating, and he says that 3 FBI anti-terrorist teams are en route to Oklahoma City right now.
I've been able to confirm that it was a car explosion. Now, that word coming to us from Mayor Ron Norick earlier, 1,200 pounds of explosives parked out in front of the federal building.
And ATF has confirmed that as well.
You just saw a 180-degree change in the newscast. The government line. Here you see a building right across the street, barely even damaged. And then, as you turn towards the Alfred P. Murrah building right across the street, you see absolute devastation. And you can't really see what happened here because they hurriedly destroyed the building, the crime scene, as quickly as possible and kept independent examinators and examiners and experts out. So we'll never really have a true accounting of what happened here. All I'm calling for is a real investigation. And the people of Oklahoma City have been calling for an investigation. So you've got ex-military people, politicians, police chiefs, all across the board smell a huge, gigantic, stinking rat. And it doesn't matter to our government. They're just going to use our children as much as they can in those deaths to get as much gas mileage for big government and police state as they can possibly get. And I'm telling you something, that is flat wrong. Frederick Whitehurst, who was one of the heads of the FBI crime lab, resigning and saying that they were manufacturing evidence in this case and others. Did you ever hear about that?
Yeah, I heard about it. It just, I don't know if one man could have done this, but so far that's the only man we've convicted, so I have to go by the way the courts are.
What do you think about the multiple seismograph evidence from the University of Oklahoma and the U.S. Geological Survey that picked up multiple explosions?
I didn't hear much about that. And I feel sorry for these people. I got people that live here, and they're not too sure what's going on around here, so.
And I've just been asking people that look like they're knowledgeable. Y'all familiar with what happened in 1933 in Germany? The Reichstag? Y'all remember that? It happened to their parliament building?
Right, that's right. They blew that up. Hitler blew that up to get rid of or to make it look like it was the current government.
Communist, yes.
Or the communists.
Yes,
yeah.
He wanted fear, he wanted some terrorism bills, and he got them. They didn't really get all the stuff they wanted here in America. Are you familiar with what Nero did in Rome?
Yes, he burned it, and that's where we're going right now.
All right, thanks a lot. Nice to meet you, Charles. So what's your opinion on what's going on in the government right now?
You know, hey, it's just, you know, it's too big. Government is basically too big.
Too big for us to be able to watch.
You know, that's right. You know, they offering your business, my business, and everybody else's business. They tax you to death. That's definite, you know, and they also trying to tell, basically, you know, trying to run the state's business. Everybody else, you know, it's just, you know, just basically got too big. You know, fat get fatter, rich get richer.
That's it. Charles?
It definitely ain't us.
Charles, how do you feel 2.5 years after the tragedy of what happened at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building?
Oh, it's going to happen again.
And who do you think was involved in that? Do you think it was McVeigh alone or with others, or do you think it was the government perhaps trying to scare us into submission?
Oh, he wasn't alone, definite, you know, because can't no one or two guys pull that off by themselves, you know. And for government building to get blew up, you know they gonna know what's going on. You know, it's more than what it is. Most definitely.
It's also kind of funny that that building was so demolished, but one right across the street was barely even damaged.
The only way that could happen is that they know the specifics and where to put the bomb at. You know,
real experts.
That's right. You know, and hey, just like I say, he was an army. You know, he's in the army, so of course he's trained in military tactics. And you just think about it, you know, the way that building was bombed and blew up, and the way it went up
was very professional.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Do you think that there have been any unanswered questions about what's happened with the bombing? Do you think the media has done a good job or has tried to find out the truth?
Yeah, I think the media have tried to, but you know, it's covered up. You know, it's covered up. What about, you know, y'all? You got to look at it just case in point. John Doe number 2. You know, they tell you don't even think about looking for him.
Just forget about him.
But you know, they just say. But you know.
Did you live here, Charles, at the time of the bomb?
I live here. I work right here in this building. I was at work. At work.
Did you feel it?
Yeah, I thought this building was blowing up.
How many blasts did you feel?
2.
And how far apart were they?
Oh, probably about boom, and then it's boom.
And so it wasn't a rumble, it was 2 separate booms.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with the seismograph information that distinctly shows 2 separate bombings?
I heard people discuss it and the media discuss it and stuff.
Yes. Are you familiar with Mr. Keyes, Representative Keyes, that believes the government may be involved?
Yeah, Tom Keyes from Oklahoma? Yes. Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
Who do you think stood to benefit from that heinous bombing?
Basically, the government by them wanting to do what they want to do, to be able to do come and go as they please, look, search, siege, or whatever. You know, they benefit more when stuff like this happens.
So you think it was important for them the American people were getting too uppity. We were tired of getting pushed around, and so suddenly something happens, and now government gets to come back and be big brother again.
Now they got a reason. Basically, you know, all it takes is a little for them to do a lot. You know, they basically do, you know, have come and go as they please, do what they want to, as it is right now.
Are you familiar, or are you aware of the fact that all 17 of the ATF agents and over 20 of their clerks and secretaries were all off the 9th floor, but the rest of the building was filled to the gills with children and other people?
Yeah, I'm aware. You know, the media made that aware of everybody, you know, and it's like, it makes you think. You know, of all the people who should have been there 9 o'clock in the morning, it's them, but they conveniently was out, or either out the court, or either doing their thing, you know, but they wasn't in the building. It makes you wonder, did they really know what's really going on?
So we're about a block and a half away from the federal building right now?
Right.
Or from the remains of it?
Yeah.
And you were at work on April 19th, 95 when it happened, and you felt 2 distinct explosions?
Yes, I did.
Where were you when the bomb went off?
Me and him were standing next together.
And y'all are just about a block away?
This building right here.
And you felt 2 distinct blasts?
Yeah. Both of us fell down trying to get out the building. You know, it was just that much of a shake around there.
What was the first blast? Was it bigger or smaller than the second?
It was bigger. The second one was smaller, but you could distinctly hear it.
So it popped like a firecracker?
No, it wasn't a firecracker.
A firecracker in your ear?
No.
No, it was a big one.
Yeah, it was big.
Let me ask y'all a question. Y'all know what a police state is, right? Yeah. It's when the police run everything and you don't have any rights. Right. Do y'all feel that we're moving into a police state?
Yes, definitely, for sure.
And again, that's me personally, that's not an attack on the cop on the beat. I mean, thugs and criminals control our police forces now, both state and national and local. And so that's why it's so hard to get a crime punished nowadays.
Mm-hmm. True, it is.
Seems like if you steal $100, they'll put you in prison, but if you steal $1 million, they'll give you a medal.
Yeah, and a little time to the side, you'd be on the side, yeah.
Do y'all have any other comments about what's been going on? What's the solution to the problem? Donnie?
There's a lot of answers, different solutions.
What was that you were saying?
Divide and conquer, that's what it is.
That's an old game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate y'all's time. The facts are irrefutable. Treason is being engaged in. President Clinton bragged on Air Force One in 1996 to the press that he owed the revival of his presidency to the Oklahoma City bombing. General Parton, Ted Gunderson, Anthony Hilder, and many people with expertise in this area have documented what is happening. People like Jane Graham, who was a survivor inside the Murrah building, saw strange utility personnel placing packages against pillars in the lower areas of the building. We have photographs of the Ryder truck being loaded with fuel oil at Camp Grouper, and that is in northern Oklahoma. And you add this with the newscast before and then conflicting afterwards. You add this with Newsweek having to use a artist rendition to show you the 8-foot deep, 30-foot around crater. And then when you see the actual video evidence, it's a heap of rubble that's been blown out into the street, not in by a truck bomb. There were 2 explosions, the seismographs show that, and the only people that gained from this were those that are for federal power. That's the evidence, and it's irrefutable. And if that's not enough for you, Carol Howell, a confidential FBI informant, warned the FBI before the bombing that the Aryan Republican Army and Andre Strassmeyer were planning to bomb the building. Now see some evidence of concentration camp facilities being built in America under the guise of FEMA going back over 30 years, but it is accelerating.
Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster?
Mr. Chairman.
I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that, sir.
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution. And I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. I believe that it was, but I wanted to get his
May I most
confirmation.
respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, I'm certain arrangements can be made for an executive session.
And tragically, the only member who got close was Jack Brooks, and he was stopped by the chairman. But the truth of the matter is that, yes, you do have those standby provisions, and the plans are there, and the statutory emergency plans are there, whereby you could, in the name of stopping terrorism, apprehend, invoke the military, and arrest Americans and hold them in detention camps.
We've been around the nation categorizing enemy activity. Now we're headed back to Austin, Texas to expose the activities there. We're here at the Model United Nations Day, January 16th, 1998. We went in and discussed with a lot of people, a lot of issues, and saw the youth being educated, being trained in the ways of world governance and the growth of the world government control apparatus. Many of these people don't understand who controls the United Nations. And you're fixing to see that from the interviews that we conducted. And that's the scary part. There's so many good people engaged in this at the lower level. And that creates the group psychology, the peer pressure, that it is a good organization. I think we've conducted a balanced report, and the excerpts from interviews with children, teachers, and administrators, and the local United Nations recruiting organization for adults, professors, and children was here also. This is where our country is. This is where it's moving. And the scariest point of this entire discussion that we had today and this report is that we are severely lacking in teaching our youth about the Constitution of the United States and about the government of the United States. But there's plenty of money and there's plenty of help from the establishment to teach them about the United Nations. And that doesn't surprise me a bit, because we know that there is a move towards global government, abolition of private property, the destruction of national sovereignty in the name of the group collective. And what did David Rockefeller say about the public schools? What did he say about government training centers, or what he called the public schools? He called it helpless people yielding themselves to our molding hands. And these lovely, intelligent, but very young people are very easily molded by the establishment today. So let's go inside the teaching center here at the University of Texas and find out exactly what's happening to our youth of this nation.
What's your name under here, Observer?
Maybe it's just the same publisher. I read one that was called Simplify Your Life. That's what it's called.
Oh, there's a whole battery of them. Otherwise, the pages are not supposed to let you.
One of the things.
Oh, good. If you don't have. So, we have lots of things, lots of plans, and we think we have a great conference.
Who are some of the sponsors of the conference?
Well, we are the United Nations Association of Austin, and this year the League of Women Voters is co-sponsoring us.
Who is the head of the United Nations organization here in town?
Frank Cooksey, a former mayor.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a different court. But this is, actually this court, the International Court, meets in The Hague.
That's in the Netherlands, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And I see y'all are wearing little worlds there. Do y'all care about the world?
Yeah.
Y'all are good people, aren't you?
Yeah.
Do y'all think the United Nations is helping?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to make world peace.
A great way to make world peace. Because through global governance, we can knock out all the troublemakers.
Yes.
Is that what y'all been talking about?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Well, that's great. I hope y'all have an enjoyable time.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
What do you think about the United Nations?
Cool.
Yeah, it's very good. It's like an organized. I think it's kind of fun. It is really cool. It decides a whole lot of world issues.
Yeah, they make
World peace and stuff.
It's really exciting. Nifty.
Well, that's great. Let's get that. Model United Nations, just one more of the many committees. Helpless young people yielding themselves to the elite's hands. I could tell them about the people that really control it, but they never understand it. It's this petty taste of power that gets them to believe that they're really doing something good when they're really working for something bad. Notice your youth are not being taught about the Constitution. They are being taught about world constitution, world proletariat, orders from headquarters. So, Mr. Schofield, how long have you been involved in Model UN?
This is my fourth year. I started at our first conference, the Central Texas Model UN, during the first conference. And it's my fourth year, and now I'm the Secretary General. Before the conference, basically putting getting all the nations to come, all the students, working with the schools, getting the pages and putting the staff together. And then once we're here, I just kind of direct, make sure everything's going smoothly, and kind of just observe, let the secretary go to work.
How many years have they been having Model United Nations here in the United States?
The oldest conference, I believe, in the U.S. is 40 years, and that's high school, and the oldest college conference is 35 years.
How long has it been here at University of Texas?
This is the 4th year for the conference. I believe the group is since 1983. And way back in the 1960s, early 60s, there was a conference here in UT.
Actually, Secretary Schofield was wrong. The United Nations was first called the League of Nations and failed in 1918 under Woodrow Wilson. It's a push for a global taxation system. And our youth are being indoctrinated. They're being brought by their high school teachers and their junior high teachers to UT and universities across the nation to learn about giving up our sovereignty. They use careful semantics in choosing the term join the nationwide movement for a more effective United Nations. It's not a nationwide movement, it's a worldwide movement. Worldwide movements are nothing new. And all through history we've seen the blood and carnage. The UN packages all its movements in the name of the children. But if you really study their history, you find individuals like Kirk Valtheim. The fact is, Kirk Valtheim, Secretary General of the United Nations from 1972 to 1982, was a top-level SS officer, a death camp operator. Yes, and the United Nations attempted to protect him. These are the same people that sit around and talk about America's civil rights and America's human rights. It's all an excuse. It's a package. It's a facade. Again, Kirk Valtheim, Secretary General from 1972 to 1982. And this fact cannot be ignored. This is the history of global government and pushes for absolute power. And we have the same type of individuals here in our nation today. There you have UN peacekeeping forces in Somalia and Rwanda, torturing, burning, making children drink salt water, eat worms, cutting people's heads off. This is the modern United Nations, but you won't see this in the mainstream press. This is a push for empire. They also give awards to China. We've already gone over China's human rights, the slave labor camps, the euthanasia, the infanticide. And they've given awards to organizations like NAMBLA. They've allowed them into the United Nations.
See, I have photographs here, and I have other ones. I actually have color copies of these, but I just brought these of them burning Somali children, putting them in cages to die. These are Belgian UN troops, of them making them eat vomit and worms and salt water, and cutting their heads off. In fact, if you have time, I'll try to show you some photographs of that. What do you think about that?
It's torture.
This has been in the Village Voice, the New American, both sides of the political spectrum, and it hasn't been in your mainstream press. These people have been punished by their respective countries, but not by the United Nations at The Hague.
Well, so, wait, describe to me again, like what exactly is going on in these pictures?
Well, this young man's being forced to, by Belgian forces in Somalia, to drink a mixture of saltwater vomit and eat worms. And then it also talks about how, in the Village Voice, how they got, actually had the entire article at home, how they got them inside so that the Hutus, they got a whole group of Hutus inside a building and then left the compound.